Well, shalom and welcome back to Main Street, JLTV across America, JLTV, America's chosen network. Ben Lesser grew up in Europe, so we're here to talk to you about not only where you came from, but how you were able to have effect, and we'll get to that soon. But first of all, your personal story, how you survived.
My personal story goes back to Krakow, Poland. I was born in 1928 to a lovely family of 7. My parents, my father, mother. I had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. The only survivors out of the 7 of us is my sister Lola. She lives in New York, and myself. And we lived in Krakow, as I said. My father's business, he had a wine and syrup business. He also had a chocolate factory. He was the first one to manufacture chocolate-covered wafers like Kit Kat in Poland. And very good business. Everything was confiscated in 1939 once the war broke out. I was just almost 11 years old at the time. The next ordinance that came out, and I don't know why, it was at the very beginning, so they gave us a choice to either go into the ghetto in Krakow or go into a small community in the outskirts of Krakow. We were chased away penniless, with a family of 7, without a penny. Not like you can get a job or something, because Jewish people were not allowed to be hired. So here he is, devastated. What do you do? But my future brother-in-law rented this apartment, a little house with a sash roof. The farmer lived on one side, we lived on the other. In the hallway was a baking oven. So he brought him 100 pounds of flour as a gift and a little salt, which is customary in a Jewish home to give flour and salt, but figuring at least he'll have the flour to bake some bread for the family. Now my father took the flour. Instead of baking bread, he started to bake pretzels. He baked pretzels. All you needed for pretzels is salt, water, and flour. Those ingredients he had. He took the pretzels, he took it to the neighboring bars, and it was a big novelty, and we started to sell the pretzels. From the pretzels, now he had a few dollars, he could bake a few breads for the family, and from the pretzels he started to bake other stuff like challah, cakes, cookies, and mandelbread was one of his favorite item to bake.
The reason you're holding this is going to be the finale of the story.
This is going to be the finale of the story.
So we'll talk about that.
Mandelbread, we'll talk about it.
Right.
He started to bake these mandelbreads. Anyway, to make a long story short, he didn't survive the war, and this didn't last long. The whole family, except my sister and I, were the only survivors. Everyone else was slaughtered. I arrived to New York in 1947 without a language, without an education, because my education stopped at age 11. Age 11, it stopped.
In 39 when the war started.
No language, no trade, no money, practically no family. My sister was there. But what do you do? I started to work, and I worked my way up. Eventually I left New York and I came to California, and I married my lovely wife, had a wonderful business, eventually went into the real estate business. We had a couple offices in Los Angeles. Pretty successful business until things changed in 1969, when interest jumped too high. We went out of business. But I decided to retire in Las Vegas. And when I retired in Las Vegas, the first thing I started to do was to bake. Just for the fun of it, I felt a connection to my parents by baking. I felt closeness. Don't ask me why. I started to bake challah, I started to bake mandelbread and cookies and cakes, and everyone loved my baking, especially the mandelbread. Also, about the same time, I started to speak in schools and colleges about the Zachor Holocaust Remembrance Foundation. Zachor means remember. I started this foundation because while speaking, I needed to leave something tangible to the listeners, to the kids, after they speak, so that they walk away with something in their hand, and it meant so much for them. A little pin which says Zachor, just a remembering pin. We want this to continue in perpetuity. What do we do? And if everyone seems to like my mandelbread so much, why not do what my father did? He was forced into doing something. I don't want to bake, but this is so delicious. Why not start a business baking mandelbread, and some of the funds will go to support the Zachor Foundation.
Gotcha. That's unusual. I've never heard of such a thing like that.
We're hoping that this business will eventually support the Zachor Foundation in perpetuity. And this is why I'm here. This is why I'm telling my story. This is why I've been speaking for the last 17 years without stopping, dedicating my life. I traveled all over. I was in Northern Arctic and Canada speaking about it. This is why I wrote a book.
So I suggest maybe what we do is we take a break, bring your daughter here, join us. Three of us can chat. I think we can stand up around the table here and talk about the mandelbread and the different flavors. So I think we can mic ourselves up appropriately. We're going to take a break. We'll ask our staff to get us all oriented here with something different where we stand up around the table. And certainly what adds to the difference is we'll have the opportunity to tell you about mandelbread and also how to spell it, which has various possibilities. Anyway, we'll be right back with our friend Ben Lesser and family. Stay tuned. And we're back. We're back now not only with Ben, but his daughter Gail. We're going to talk about mandelbread and how this all evolved. But first, I want to just mention to you the fact, too, of some of the history of Ben. First of all, I have this book that Ben gave me, Living a Life That Matters. The Nazi Nightmare to the American Dream. And we want to underscore the fact that the American dream is often, this part of the story is left out. It's just a magnificent part of Jewish history. It's how the survivors came to North America, through Canada to the United States, and really made a difference. So that's an important thing to underscore. But I wanted to also ask for our viewers who somewhat have studied the Shoah, the Holocaust now, what camps you're in, a little bit more about your history.
First, after the war broke out, and we were in ghettos, in Bochnia ghetto and other ghettos in Krakow. And also, most of the time we were on the run or in hiding in bunkers. And finally, we had a chance to escape Poland from Bochnia through a coal truck which carried coal on top, and between the coal and the chassis there was a empty space that 10 people could lay down on their stomach, and this Polish driver would take us anyway to the border of Czechoslovakia, and we had smugglers. All of this involves a big story, and it's on my book. It costs a lot of money, how we came about that money, who financed us to be able to escape Poland and get into Czechoslovakia, and eventually to Hungary. And Hungary was in 1943 a free country. And I had a sister living there, and my grandparents, uncles, and cousins from my mother's side all lived in Munkacs, Hungary at the time. It used to be Czechoslovakia. And eventually from there, in 1944, after I went through the Holocaust in Poland, the second Holocaust for me began in Hungary. In 1944, when the Germans marched in, they took me to Auschwitz. We had to go 3 days and 3 nights in those freight cars, all cooped up by 80 people in a freight car. Don't ask the condition. Finally, we arrived in Auschwitz. And from Auschwitz, I went to Dernau, which was a labor camp. I worked in a rock quarry. And from there, the death march started. We marched for weeks to Buchenwald. And from Buchenwald, when the front closed in closer, they put us in a death train. I call it the death train because they shuttled us around for 4 weeks without food or water. And 99% of the people on that death train, over 2,000 people, they all died. How I survived, that's a story you'd have to read in the book. Weighing about 65 pounds, a skeleton, I came to Dachau, and I was liberated 3 days later in Dachau.
But let's go now to mandelbread.
Papa Ben's Kitchen.
Papa Ben. Tell us, we heard from your father kind of like the connection in his family and your family. But what are you doing with this now?
We have 5 flavors, and our flavors are made with the finest ingredients out there. We get Belgian chocolate. We have an espresso bean. We use actual espresso in with the mixture. We have, and that's a chocolate mandelbread itself. The cookie itself is chocolate. Our other chocolate one is a chocolate mint, and that's done with really wonderful peppermint. We also have a lemon blueberry that is just
Delicious.
very refreshing and very delicious. And we also have some poppy seeds in that, so it's a lemon blueberry with poppy. Besides our original flavor, which is the original family recipe that my dad baked every once in a while as I was a kid, we also have a flavor that's knocking everybody's socks off, and it's our spicy chipotle with ginger and dark chocolate. Yeah. And it is an awesome flavor. It's a perfect combination. You have the soft sweetness, and then afterwards you taste the chipotle, and and then the ginger comes in afterwards. It's a great combination.
And it's doing good with your Zachor organization too, so there's several layers of connections here, especially as a second generation. It must make you feel good to be involved in something you can merchandise, which has a side benefit.
That's right. And yeah, because it's not an ordinary cookie out there on the shelf. We have a mission, we have a cause, we have family, we have tradition. We also have when we say family and tradition and second and third generations, and then the generations forward. Our children are also involved. My daughter is very involved with me right now at the beginning, Jenica, and she is a strong part of making this company grow.
Well, thanks to the two of you.
Thank you.
And there's some websites and all sorts of information and flashing on. And
we are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we have our website, papabenskitchen.com. Like us, join us. We get into a hubbub of it.
All right, that's good.
Thank you.
Nice words, nice comments, and great mandelbread. The best mandelbread I've ever had. Oh boy, thank you. We'll be right back with more on JLTV Across America, America's chosen network. That's what you're watching.